All right. Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday at 10 a.m. Normally, my favorite co host, Tim Vest, is with me today, but he is out of pocket and on the road, and he won't be available next week either because he's going on vacation to Costa Rica. But this week, we got an exciting guest. This is one of my buddies. His name is Joe. He lives here locally in Wilmington, in Carolina Beach, more specifically. I met Joe because he's part of the GoBundance tribe, which many of you probably know about from Bigger Pockets and have heard about from Brandon Turner and all those guys, like what GoBundance is. And it's a mastermind that Tim Vest and myself are part of, and we really enjoy it. And I get to connect with awesome real estate related people like Joe. And so, Joe, thanks for being here today, man. Why don't you give a little introduction about yourself? Tell everybody what you do, where you're from, what's your background. Go ahead, just let everybody know who you are.
Oh man, jump right into it, full
That's
steam. I
it.
love it. But yeah, Tim, thanks for having me here. My name's Joe Prillaman. I am a real estate investor and a real estate agent. I'm on a pretty awesome team called the Short Term Shop, and so kind of my whole life is short-term vacation rentals. So I started my real estate career really out of a necessity. I was doing a job where I was just gone from my wife all the time, and the goal was to really just claw my way to financial freedom. And so from there, I started actually buying foreclosed properties outside of Fayetteville, North Carolina, and that was really my start into the game. But it's a long story. I know we'll get into a lot of it today, but I'm so happy to be here. Like now we're fast forward to today. I'm in Carolina Beach, North Carolina. We've got 16 short-term rentals and 16 properties total, 21 doors, and just living the dream, my man.
Dude, I love when we first met, you kind of told me your story about how you went all in and just take action. And, those that know my story know how, we sold our house and went all in as well. So I'm a big fan and I really appreciate people that there's no gray area, right? You either do or do not. And that's one thing I definitely love and appreciate about you. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about why you like short-term rentals, like what got you down that path? How did you decide that you wanted to be in the short-term rental game? And then what I want to kind of work up to is how you got to your 7-unit up in Banner Elk that your 7-unit apartment complex that you converted.
Yeah, absolutely. And so short-term rentals for me, it was just the natural progression of like where we should go next. And so I was in the single family home game looking at, okay, like if I can figure out how to do 30 of these, I'll be able to quit my job
Oh,
and
everybody
not
knows that.
like everybody
Yeah.
knows that. That's where you
You
start.
listen to enough
And
Brandon Turners and you're like, man, I'm going to be the best burr investor ever making $200 a door, you know?
that was it through and through. I was like, you can't go wrong with a burr. I was like, it makes so much sense. I can recycle capital as hard as I can go, and uh, I will have no problem managing 30 different doors and 30 different roofs and HVACs and all that stuff. And like, you just don't think about that whenever you're getting in the game because like you've done this first perfect deal, and it's like I had nothing, and now I've got like 20 grand of
Something.
equity, and I'm
Yeah.
making 150 grand or $150 a month, and I'm high
Right.
on the hog. I'm a happy camper.
But it's
That
such a big mountain you're looking up, right? Like it's how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. And doing that first either long-term rental, single family house, or first short-term rental, single family, whatever your setup is, like you just got to do something. You got to get off the sidelines. You got to get into actually like taking action and getting into going through the closing process. Like you have to be able to define yourself as a closer if you want to progress in at any facet of real estate.
100%. I mean, like that was truly it. It was the get out of the analysis paralysis. I've been spending 2 years just researching, listening to anything I could find on Bigger Pockets, any book I could get my hands on of just how do you do this? How do you be successful at it? And finally, I had somebody I actually reached out to him on Bigger Pockets, and he just kicked me in the rear and said, "Hey, go freaking do it. Just make
Yeah.
something happen. Close something." And that was really the light bulb moment for me. And realizing after four of these things that hey, like I'm gonna drown in paperwork
Hmm.
and I'm gonna drown in like all this additional
Hmm.
stuff, and I'm not actually making any money. I had one HVAC go out and it killed all my cash flow for 2 years. And I was like, well, I've
Right.
got all this equity and like this is supposed to work. What's going on? Short-term rentals for me, it was the natural progression of, hey, here's something that's a faster horse. Like this is something that can get me to that next level quicker because I was looking at it, and the difference between running a short term rental is I can make $1,000 a month instead of making
Hmm.
150, And I'm also buying assets that are going to appreciate long term, which everybody doesn't realize that appreciation is the actual real game in this. That's where you
That's
build
where
your
you make
wealth.
money is in the equity. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
where it is.
Right.
But I was so blinded by the cash flow because I was like, I got to quit my job. I'm gone every single month. Like, I got to get back. And so I do think it's truly a natural progression of real estate investing. Of you're starting something that's super high cash flow. They're typically not the nicest properties. I mean, I was buying $40,000 VA foreclosures and putting 20 grand into them, and they were worth 80. And so it was definitely not the most glamorous thing on the planet. But that transitioned slowly into, okay, now we see that we can do this with short-term rentals. We jumped in all in and reached out to another guy on Bigger Pockets. He showed me like how the whole game was played and just went to town on it. And
Yeah.
rest is really history. It was like once we found this, it's like we're going all in on it 100%, and we're going to devote all of our time, energy, and resources to short-term rentals because I don't know if y'all know this, but short-term rentals is the most active form of real estate investing that you're ever going to do. I don't
Mhm.
Anyone who tells you it's passive, they are lying.
Yeah, and you know what? It's something that I appreciate. Like I had bought one single long-term rental, right? And that was
Mhm.
my get my feet in the game, you know, uh, off the sidelines, analysis paralysis. I thought it was a perfect deal. It ended up not being a perfect deal. I still crushed it in terms of making equity. Like I bought it for 76,000. I sold it for $153,000 like 2.5 years later. Right. I mean,
That's what I'm
it
talking
was
about.
insane. It's insane. Right. And I was just like, oh, it's a little really bent out of shape when the appraisal came in low on the refinance. But really the silver lining there was I learned about how commercial real estate was appraised, right? On the income based
Mm,
approach versus the comp based approach. And it doesn't matter if you want to go into short term rentals or you want to go into long term rentals or apartments or triple net or self storage or mobile home parks or whatever. The key takeaway there that Joe said that everyone needs to do and pay attention to is they went all in on a single thing. They didn't get shiny object syndrome. They weren't all over the place. You can make money in real estate anywhere you devote your time and effort to, right? It is
100%.
you have to devote it to one thing. And don't get me wrong, you can diversify later on. But until you have some certain level of success where buying something becomes easy, like analyzing apartment complexes for me, very easy now, right? So like I know exactly what I'm looking for. I know what's a buy criteria, what's not a buy criteria. It's not very stressful for me to find a deal anymore, right? So that has opened up my mental space in order to be able to kind of diversify. And I have tried out some triple net stuff. I have tried out a little bit of self storage. I have tried some other things, but my bread and butter is still multifamily, right? Like I
Hmm.
don't play around with that. And that's the
Yep.
golden nugget that you just said there was like you just went all in on one thing. And for you, that was short-term rentals. And that's okay. And I love that, right? Because if somebody's making money out there, might as well be you, right? So right.
Exactly.
Now, so all right, so take me forward a little bit. So you did a couple short term, you did some flips, you did, your long-term rental thing. How did you get up to this point where you're buying this 7-unit short-term rental in Banner Elk? Because I guarantee you there's other people out there listening to this right now, or maybe listening to the recording later, that they have done something similar. Like they have a couple long-term
Hmm.
rentals. Maybe they own some small 2 to 4 unit multifamily properties, whatever their situation is, but they're trying to figure out how do I get to that next level of going from 1 or 4 units at a time to 7 or 10 or 20, because that's, you're now dipping your toe into the commercial side of things. So talk about how that progressed.
Yeah. So great points of where I had hyper focused in on my niche. Like this is the horse I'm attaching myself to. I'm going to be an expert in this. I'm going to be so good that I can't be ignored. Like that was my
Right.
goal. And then from there, it was applying different aspects of real estate to that niche. And so I got really heavily into studying apartments and studying syndication. I go to the best ever conference every year. I sit down and talk to those guys, learn how people raise private capital. I learn how people do these larger apartment complexes, and really just boiled it down to this is what I'm really good at, and this is what I know. This is the strategy that I'm going to employ with it, but I'm going to take the different pieces of commercial investing and apply it to that. And that requires a whole different team across the board. Like you've got to know better lenders, you've got to know how that entire process works. And so applying that to the niche and then being able to move forward with it was huge. And so I'd say the next phase for me after because you learn so much, like you said, in that first handful of deals. Like I learned more in those first starting deals than at one time than I probably will in any other time in my investing career. Now the rest was,
Mhm.
okay, now I understand the concepts. Now I can go out and apply it. And really at the end of the day, it's the relationships. Like, how much can you learn? How many people can you meet? How many meetups can you go to? And understand that what you want to do is possible, because like real estate's a time game. The people who win in real estate are the people who don't quit, because you're going to continually run into so many doors that are going to keep you from doing it. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. So like going out
Bro,
there and buying like a small multifamily, it's how much are you willing, how comfortable are you being uncomfortable is really what it turns into. And so
right. My
didn't mean
my
to cut you off.
favorites, dude, I say I love that what you said was, those that don't quit can't lose, or whatever. My favorite saying of that, and I still haven't got it up on the wall, but it's on my to-do list eventually sometime, is that opportunity gets tired of persistence.
Yes, that
That's
is
my
great.
favorite saying, is that if you are continually persistent towards taking one step every single day towards what you want to be doing, eventually you will get there, right? And there's so many people that had looked at my story, for example. I mean, I relate a lot of things to myself because I know my own story, right? But it's like, oh, Tim, you become the overnight success. But they're like, oh, but then they find out that I've actually been in real estate since 2019, doing the learning and the educating and the networking, and establishing like a persona of myself on the social media world in order to build my network. I spent 3 years building my network before I made a dollar. Right? You're going to conferences, you're going to the meetups, you're spending time away from your family and your friends. You are deliberately taking action to do something that's uncomfortable, meaning going to those meetups and meeting new people and going to the conferences and spending money and doing the things that you've never done before. It's much easier for you to just stay home and watch F1 or the Masters on TV, right? But
Oh yeah,
are you
absolutely.
going to make the decision to do that and stay where you are? Or are you going to make the decision to say, all right, I'm going to go eat dinner and then I'm going to go to this meetup and I don't know anybody, but I'm going to meet somebody there. And that's
That's the
all
key.
it is. It's that over a long period of time. It's a consistent long period of time, because what happens in those meetups and those networking events and the mastermind events and the coaching programs and whatever conferences, anything that you go to, is you're going to introduce yourself. You're going to tell people what you do, what you're good at, what you like to do. You're also going to tell people what you can't do and what you don't know how to do. And what inevitably is going to happen is you're going to meet somebody that says, why can't you do that? All you have to do is this. And you get this spark, this light bulb moment of like, oh my God, what? It's that easy. Like, I'm just going to go do this now. And going to those things and meeting different people and building up your network, it helps you get past those like mental roadblocks of what's possible and what's not possible. And literally everything is possible in real estate if you know the right person to get it done.
That's it, to the T. And that's probably one of my favorite things about this game, is sitting there and having like this base of knowledge and seeing someone else who is obviously smarter than me, more capable and more driven, and being like, hey, like if you do this, and then just watching all the sparks collide and watching all the like their brain explode of like, oh my gosh, I can do this, this, and this. But then the key is they go out and do it.
And
Those are the
do it.
most successful people I meet, are the ones that are like, okay, I have this now, and I go out and take action on it. Because so few people will actually take action. There's so much knowledge out there, things you can learn. But the most successful people I know, they surround themselves. They try to be the dumbest guy in the room, and
Right.
unfortunately, I'm really good at that. Being the
Well,
dumbest guy.
I wouldn't say unfortunate. I would say fortunately, I'm really good at that.
Fortunately.
Come on, you got to look at that half full, right? But that's I tell people that all the time. Like, I go to a lot of hell. I'm going to a mastermind event next week, right? Up in Columbus, Ohio. Seth Teagle, he's running that one. A couple guys like Ash Patel, he's going to be at that
Hmm.
event, and Chris Litzler will be there, and a couple other guys, But basically, I'm going there to meet people, and like I've known them online forever, but we've never shook hands before. So I'm going to go spend the weekend with them. I'm going to go hang out, and I'm going to talk about what my problems are, and I'm going to talk about how can I help other people, right? Because somebody there is going to have a problem with something that's my skill set, so I can help them, and other
Yeah.
people can help me. But you go to those big conferences and stuff like that, and I meet a ton of people, and every single person I meet there, I'm like, look, I know that when you come out of this event, you're going to be juiced up, like you're going to be excited, it's going to be fun, all the things. And I'm like, write down right now in your phone or on a piece of paper, wherever you need to write it down. write down the 3 things that you're, oh my God, I need to do these in the next, these 3 things in the next month, 60 days, and 90 days. And then 90 days from now, find another event to go to, and then say, okay, well, I did these 3 things that I learned that helped me move me forward. What are the next 3 things I need to go learn in order to move me forward? And it's when you try to take a bite out of the apple instead of eat the whole apple at the same time is when you really start to make progress, but you got to write it down and you got to take action.
Absolutely. And a real quick thing that you said in there too that just like it brings it all home. You're like, what can I do? What value can I add? You were there, like your mindset was, I wanted to create value for these other people, which means you wanted to solve their problems. And if you
That's
really
right.
want to boil it down, it's I want to figure a way to make this person a ton of freaking money. And that's the goal. If you can do that, that person's going to be loyal to you forever. And it doesn't matter where they're at. Like the people that you meet, you no idea the relationships and what those can turn into years down the road. I've met people that like I've had a conversation with that I didn't think anything of, but they come back to me years later and go like, "Hey, that inspired me." And I also know you're struggling with this because I saw you post it because you need to tell everyone what you're doing and what you're struggling with. And then they come out and go like, "Hey, let me help you with that because you did so much for me that you don't even know." And so it's
Yep.
just pushing that on to the next people. I love it, Tim. We can talk about this all
Dude,
day.
it's years and years and years of relationship capital,
Yeah.
right? It's providing value with no expectation of return because you genuinely want to see people succeed. You genuinely want to help people because I love to live a life of abundance. I believe that there are more money in deals than anybody could ever do, right? So like why would I ever try to snake somebody and do something wrong behind their back? No, I'm going to do the right thing and I'm going to be forthfront and I'm going to tell people how I think I can help them, right?
Yeah.
And if they need my help, cool, let me know. I'd love to help. If I can make it happen, I will because I know that if I go above and beyond and do this for you, that it's going to stick in your brain that this guy's a good guy, right? And
Oh
it
yeah.
it might not mean anything from that person in the next 12, 24, 36 months, whatever the time frame, right? But what could happen is in a conversation, miles and miles and miles and miles apart from each other, you say, actually, I know a guy that did this for me. Why don't you reach out to him? Right. And then you start to build this network of people that are starting to reach out to you and you're reaching out to them. And it's just, it's one hand washes the other at the end of the day. Right. And you never know. Oh, so sorry. One thing that Tim Bratz had said at his mastermind that I absolutely loved, and I never really got it until I was at one of those events, was when you go to a mastermind event, you're paying for the people that are not in the room. Right? You're
Mm.
paying like if Tim and Joe build a relationship at a mastermind event, well, Tim's network of people now has become Joe's network of people and vice versa. Because if Joe reaches out to Tim and says, "Hey, I need something. I can't help you, but I know who can." Right? You see how that web just continues to grow exponentially.
Oh, that's great. I
Yeah.
love that.
Oh,
100%
isn't it?
copying that from you.
Oh, I didn't even make it up, man.
I
But I
know,
love it. It
but I'll give
works.
you the credit for that from now on. That's incredible.
Yeah, just change the last name there. You're good.
And
um,
we're good to
all right.
go, man.
All right. So man, this is so much fun. So talk to us about your short-term rental up in Banner Elk. How did you find this
Ooh.
7-unit apartment complex? What made you think about doing short-term rental? How did you fund it? How did you find it? Did you need to
Yep.
reach out to your network and partner with people? Like what talk us through this deal?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll jump into it right off the bat. So I already knew that I specifically wanted to invest in Banner Elk. I had a pretty narrow buy box of I'm looking for at least a 6 unit it was a little bit wider than specific Banner Elk, but I was looking Carolina Beach, Banner Elk. I was also considering Winston-Salem at the time. But I had a really great team in place. I had an awesome real estate agent. He's actually a member on our team. His name's Garrett. And he was constantly like searching for me to see what was happening. Well, this deal in particular, it was actually on market. I've bought very few deals off market, which is I find can be unique, but a majority of real estate runs through the MLS. But it was still an incredible deal. So the property was actually listed on the Charlotte MLS. It's syndicated to Banner Elk. We were able to move in and make an offer quickly and got it under contract. It was already an investment property that another investor had already set up and had built. So it was already staged and furnished and had been running under a property manager. So we saw the additional value of being able to step in and do our additional systems, so that we could maximize our revenue because we're very hands-on in our management. So I've got my own in-house team where we build out our own short-term rental management. We do all of our own messaging and whatnot, so that we can maximize our profits. And so we saw a lot of potential, a lot of meat on the bone, and it was a deal that not a lot of people saw because it had been listed on a different MLS. And so we stepped in, we got it under contract, ended up raising private capital actually for the down payment. And since it was already staged and whatnot, and we put a good bit of our own capital into it as well. But the goal is for us to maintain our own portfolio and to have ownership in it. So our plan is we'll operate it for 2 to 3 years, get it maximized, and then we'll go back and refinance the whole portfolio and cash out our private money investors.
Talk to us, if you feel comfortable with it, obviously. Talk to us a little bit about the high level numbers. Like, what did you pay for it? How much money did you have to put
Yeah.
into rehab? Like, what's your current, what your price per door, what your pro forma rents are? And then lastly, talk about how you structured it with your investor. Cause that's a question I get all the time is like, Tim, how do I
hmm
structure this with one of my investors? So, I know how I would do it, but I'm curious to hear about how you did it.
Yeah, so my pool of people that I partner with is extremely small. I don't know if you guys have read Matt Fairclough's book, How to Raise Private Capital, but a majority of people who are within your immediate sphere, those are the people that I work with, is basically friends and family. And so the way I set that one up, so I'll go back to a little bit of the higher level numbers. So we actually ended up purchasing it for 1.5. It appraised out of the gate for 1.65, and it had about $75,000 worth of furniture already in it. So it was already staged, renovated, ready to go. It was a really good deal sitting on the MLS. Um, from there, we ended up doing a 20% down payment. I put in about $100,000 of my own money for. There's a lot of startup costs that come
Mhm.
with running a short-term rental. So like you've got linens, you've got all the additional owner's closets you've got to stock. There's your own individual processes and systems, and then on top of that, you have really a 6 month to a year time frame of where you're just running through your operations and making a ton of mistakes. You're firing cleaners, you're finding new handymen, you're really running your property as hard as you can go and trying to break everything in all reality. Like that's where you find out, okay, do I need to have beds that are supported? Do I have HVACs that are going to work? Do I have the heaters that are going to be able to maintain this? Do I have pipe warmers set up for everything for crazy snap colds like we had over Christmas? That pretty much ruined my Christmas. That was no fun. But
Everybody's talking about it.
that was terrible.
Yeah.
But that's when you're going to test all your systems. Like I had 2 units flood that weekend, which is no fun, but like we're prepared for that. We have everything we need to go in and get a property up and running. And we actually didn't miss a turnover because of that. And so it just took up a lot of my time over the holiday, which is no fun. But from there, that puts us somewhere in that like $240,000 per door, I'd say. And they're estimated to generate between, my initial numbers were about 45 to 50,000 gross a piece. And then we
Mhm.
also rent out the entire property as one large one. So we were shooting for about 300,000 gross when it's all said and done. I think we're going to outperform that year one, it appears. And if we outperform my initial numbers year one, we typically blow it out of the water year 2 and 3.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, but that comes more to like my management style. Like
Yeah,
I
of course.
underprice all my listings year one just so that we can ramp up a ton
Get
of 5-star
reviews.
reviews.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
And then we charge a premium. And during that time too, it's like my units might not be profitable year one because we're reinvesting everything so aggressively
Mhm.
back into the property, providing all those
Mhm.
additional amenities. And then once it's set up and running, man, a short-term rental, like they crank. And so
Yep.
it's a lot of just upfront cost, but
Yeah.
yeah,
You take
that's
care of
kind of
your
the general
properties and
overview.
they will take care of you.
You got it.
Yep. Hey,
Location, like building quality, and then what do they say? Amenities is really like the
right.
big 3 things that you're looking for.
Cool. So you paid, what did you say, 1.6 million?
1.5. Yep.
1.5, and you're putting about 250 into it. So you're all in for 1,750,000.
Yeah, about that.
And what do you think it's going to be worth when it's done? Like when you go for the refinance, I don't know if you're going to do that in 12 months or 24 months, because I would assume that if the first year you're really not pushing it that hard, you're building the base, you're building a foundation
hmm
of the property. Year two, you go to push it pretty hard, and then you can show the bank how much money it actually makes, and then you can start pulling some money out.
Right. And so that's going to be the interesting thing because we bought the whole building, but the whole building is actually broken up into 6 individual condos with an ADU as well. And so I've
Mm-hmm.
got a commercial lender that's going to do it as an apartment.
Yep.
It just depends on what's going to give us our best valuation at that point. Of
Sure.
it,
Of
we've kind
course.
of got like the multiple exit strategies with it of do we want to go with the traditional since it's a condo, base it off of the other comps around it, or do we want to take the whole thing off the income approach? I
Sure.
think we're going to be probably around that 2.1 to 2.2 range, maybe a little bit
Awesome.
more when it's all said and done.
Yeah. So you'd be able to refinance it, maybe 75% loan to value, and
Hmm.
pretty much cash out everybody and hopefully get, if not everything, but the majority of the money that you put into it as well. And then you start recycling and go on to the next deal.
That's it. And then just
So
let it continue crank.
how did you structure that with your current investors then? Did you do equity investors or did you do interest partners? Like how did you structure that?
So I just borrowed the down payment as a private money loan,
As
just
like a
straight up, just
promissory note?
yep, just as a
Yeah.
promissory note against it. And so
What kind of interest
that
are
was
you
the way we
paying on that?
structure it. I'm normally paying somewhere between 7 and 10% on that
Okay,
one. It
that's
was
good.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
typically where I'm falling in.
awesome. And so
Yeah.
what's the long-term vision of this place? Are you gonna keep this one long term? Is this like a legacy asset for you, or is it something that, you kind of just is it potential exit strategy to sell it after you force the equity as much? Because then now you got a big chunk of equity in your pocket. You can go and, do the next project. I mean, because we talked about this earlier, right? I mean, you make more money in the equity than you do in the cash flow. So what do you think is ultimately going to happen here?
So that's a great question. So for me, I'm trying to build this really goes back to what your goals are. So like for
Hmm.
me, like my goal isn't just to build up a ton of capital and have it and then put it in the I don't know the S&P 500 and let it pay me out. Like my goal is actually to build businesses and provide
Hmm.
jobs for people. And so like my
Hmm.
kind of grand like if you want to step back vision
Yeah.
is I want to have a company that is completely supported by the real estate so that we can go out and help other people. Essentially, I want to provide jobs. I want to buy businesses and build jobs for people. And so I want my kind of core business to be supported 100% by our real estate. And
Hmm.
then I want to use the real estate to be able to employ those core people that I need so that then I can go out and start buying businesses and essentially turn them around and run them at kind of a high level. And so
Sure.
it's my plan is to keep our best assets and then trade up to faster horses as we go through. And so like right now,
Sure.
like I'm selling my remaining long-term rentals so that I can have more capital to throw into higher end, higher cash flowing short-term rentals so I can
Hmm.
build that team faster. If that makes
Sure.
sense.
Now, are you only looking in Banner Elk, or have you expanded a little bit, or where do you think you're going to really kind of double down on so that you can achieve that business plan of hiring a lot of people and kind of running multiple business off of the main platform?
So right now, I've got Banner Elk and Carolina Beach are kind of my two main places, and
Hmm.
those are really the two that I'm gonna hyper focus in on. I'm finding that
Awesome.
I'm very susceptible to shiny object syndrome. Like there
Ooh,
was a
yeah.
period of time where I was like, oh, I'm gonna get into midterms and I'm gonna get into all this other stuff, and I do that all the time. But I'm getting niche slapped pretty hard by my team.
I love that term. That's great. Yeah.
Oh man, and
Sometimes you need that simple reminder, right? Of like, hey, Joe, this is what you do, and this is what you're going to focus on, and this is what
oh
makes you
yeah.
money, right? And there's nothing wrong with kind of dabbling with other people and every now and then, but you knowing the right time and place for it is really really important, and getting those reminders of like, hey, make sure you stay on the straight and narrow. Like, does this help me achieve my goals? Yes, no, right? There's no gray
Right.
area. No, it doesn't. I wrote this down a year ago. This doesn't help me get to where I want to go. So no.
And you would love this too because like I came back from one of my pod groups and had this like big revelation of like we're gonna jump into midterms, we're gonna do all these things, and like I built this whole business plan, and we started implementing it. We get like 2 months in, and my number two walks up to me and goes, we're gonna shut all this down because this is a nice little side win for you to get some energy out, but this doesn't meet the main goals, and like
Right.
completely shut the whole thing down for me. And I was like, you're right, like we need to be focusing on the main thing. And so instead, I wasted like 2 months of my life building out a different business. So that's what happens
Hey,
when you're a
man.
visionary.
Everyone, dude, everyone. I mean, look at the board behind you. I mean, Jesus, the mad
This is my
scientist
old
over
board.
here. Yes, you're what?
Um, this is my old board. So we actually
Oh,
just turned my office into another short-term rental because we were like, guys, we're wasting money. We can work remote. And like, I'm now been kicked back into my shed, which is my old whiteboards. But I had like 20 whiteboards all around my old one, and we just took them all down, and now I'm back to this old girl.
Tried and true, old Betsy.
That's right. That's right. Might need to get some AC out here eventually.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hot and sticky out today, so I don't blame you. But
Uh,
all right, Joe, dude, this has been so much fun. Thanks again for joining. Let everyone know how they can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about either renting your place in Banner Elk, or if they want to kind of structure their business the same way that you have, or let people know how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually hosting. I host a meetup every month at Waterline Brewing Company, the first Tuesday of every month. We just
Why
come
did I
out
not
and
know
drink a
this?
beer, and I don't know why you didn't know this. I've been hosting it for like 3 years.
Have
It's
you really?
tonight. And
Oh, all
so,
right. I'll be there
uh,
tonight.
oh, come on, this would be great. So we hang out there first Tuesday of every month, 7 p.m. at Waterline Brewing Company. They're awesome down there. They bring us pizza. And if you want to reach me, you can shoot me a text direct to 336-972-0094 or at joe@theshorttermshop.com. And yeah, I'd love to help you guys with whatever I can. And appreciate you having me on. This has been wonderful.
All right, man. Well, hey, thanks again, and I guess I'll see you later tonight.
Yeah, let's hang out. It's going to be
Cool.
great.
All right. Peace, guys. See you later.